Hey everybody, welcome back to Mel's Board Game Room and happy Canada Day. So tradition on Canada Day, the Canadian Game Design Award announced their finalists and that has been announced. So I was going to take a time to kind of talk a little bit about each finalist. But before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about the CGDA. So Canada Game Design Award has been created by the group that was running FalCon, which is the largest board game convention in Alberta. And that started back in 2010. So it's been around for many years, and each year, Canadian game designers can submit their games, and we have a winner. Now, it's been great because 80% of winners have become published games. Not all decide to go through the whole process, but 80% of them have, and there've been some amazing games throughout history. But in 2026, we had 19 design that was submitted for this year's competition, and there are some amazing games. So big shout out and huge thank you to all the judges for going through each of the entries and having to pick a winner. I was a judge last year. It's a hard task to do and to narrow it down to just the select few. So, but they've been announced. And I'm going to be talking about the finalists. So, I'm going to be talking about them in alphabetical order. And really, instead of me talking about them, I'm going to let the designers talk about their own games. So the first one that we're going to talk about is Diceomino. So Diceomino was designed by Mark Kraatz from London, Ontario. And this is what he has to say about the game.
Diceomino is a puzzly spatial board game for 2 to 6 players that uniquely combines dice with polyomino puzzle pieces, which is something that I don't think has ever been done in a board game before. At Grand Con last year, I had a seasoned gamer schedule her entire con around being able to play this game, just from what she read in the description. On your turn, select a pair of dice from one of the offer spaces. Select one of your unplayed puzzle pieces that has a number of squares on it exactly equal to one of those selected dice, or any number of squares if it is a 6. Then discard that die. This puzzle piece is placed on your player board such that it touches the edge of an already played piece or covers the X space if the first piece. The piece may be rotated or flipped and cannot hang over the edge of your player board, nor overlap any already played piece. The remaining selected die is then placed on the dark square on the just placed piece and your turn is over. Simple. Cover special spaces on your player board to unlock dice modifier tokens or discs, which are used to take bonus actions. Bonus actions allow you to do things such as modify your played dice, exchange a piece with your supply, or play a bonus piece with a die of your color on it showing 4 pips. I've had playtesters say that the heart of this game is timing around accessing these bonus actions. You only get 3, and the supply is limited. At the end of the game, add up the pips of all dice on your player board, and also score 10 points for each row or column in which you have 2 or more dice of your color. Players will try their best to achieve the perfect board. No empty spaces, 16 dice placed, all in their color, scoring plus 80 for rows and plus 80 for columns, which is very rare and has been a stand-up moment when it gets achieved in the game. This game has seen extensive playtesting at Gen Con, Grand Con, and PAX Unplugged, logging over 120 plays as of the time of this recording. See the sell sheet for the component count, mainly punch board for the polyomino puzzle pieces, player boards, bonus action board, offer space board, and of course, standard dice, 22 of which are needed for each player color. Diceomino was designed by Mark Kraatz and is for 2 to 6 players, ages 8 and up, and plays in about 15 minutes per player.
So that was Diceomino, and it looks so interesting. Now I'm excited because that prototype is currently with me. I will be hosting different game events to give the opportunity for more testers to come and try out these finalist games, as well as some of the other games that had been submitted and sent over to me so that we can play test them. Now, the next one that made the finalist is the Dominion Bridge Company. And this one was designed by Scott Preston from Fredericton, New Brunswick. Fun fact, I am from New Brunswick myself and have lived in Fredericton for over 10 years. So it's really great to see my little home province being represented here. So just a moment as I share what Scott has to say.
For as long as humans have existed, they have sought bigger, better, and safer ways to cross treacherous or otherwise impassable terrain. The first bridge was almost certainly a fallen tree over a stream, and the first bridge builders observed and copied nature. For thousands of years after this, human ingenuity produced engineering marvels of wood, stone, and iron. The golden age of bridge building had to wait, however, for the invention of steel and reinforced concrete in the late 19th century. This time period coincides with Canada's coming of age as a nation, when its population grew and much of its modern infrastructure was created. Due to the challenges of the young nation's geography, especially the mighty St. Lawrence River, the world-famous Niagara Gorge, and the awe-inspiring Rocky Mountains, Canada's bridge builders had to innovate and set world records, some of which stand to this day. Dominion Bridge Company covers the 5 decades between 1885 and 1935, from approximately the beginning of the steel and concrete era to the beginning of the automobile era. In the game, you play as the owner of a Canadian bridge building firm. Your goal is to be the player who comes closest to the achievement of the nation's greatest bridge maker, the Dominion Bridge Company. Dominion Bridge Company is a dice drafting and blind bidding game for 3 to 5 players. The winner is the player with the most reputation points at the end of the game. The game lasts 6 rounds. Each round features 3 phases. In phase 1, players bid on bridges to build. Each card represents a real historic Canadian bridge and consists of an image from an authentic historic postcard, a set of spaces that indicate the number and color of dice needed to build the bridge, and an information section on the left-hand side, which includes the bridge's name, location, date, historical facts, and a color indicating its region. Players secretly write down their bids and then reveal them simultaneously. They are bidding to earn the contract to build the bridge. Just like real-life tenders in the construction industry, the amount the players bid represents how much money they will be paid to build the bridge. Therefore, the lowest bid wins. In phase 2, players hire workers to help them build the bridges. This is represented by rolling a pool of dice and then drafting them. Special cards that provide extra abilities and impact endgame scoring are also mixed into this draft. Before the draft begins, however, each player selects how much they will pay per item they draft, with those willing to pay more having the opportunity to draft earlier than the others. The costs to hire go down as the draft continues. Drafted dice must follow 2 strict rules when being placed on the bridge cards. First, the spaces on the card must be filled from the left to the right in order. Second, each die placed must have pips equal to or no more than 1 higher or lower than the die to its left. In phase 3, any completed bridges are scored, earning players reputation points for their company. Every pip scores 1 reputation point. Then a new round begins. At the end of 6 rounds, Bonuses are added to reputation scores, and the player with the highest reputation is the winner. Dominion Bridge Company is a rare kind of game. It's a game made in Canada by a Canadian about Canada. It's also a tense and exciting game with some interesting twists on some common mechanics. The construction tender bidding mechanic, the one in which the lowest bid wins, so common in the real world, is surprisingly rare in board games. Playtesters enjoy the novelty and the challenge it presents them with. Money is tight in the game, and every decision is agonizing. I've been developing and playtesting this game since 2020. It's been a mainstay at my local Fredericton tabletop game designer playtest meetings, and I even traveled all the way to Toronto to playtest the game at Protospiel North in the fall of 2024. The game you see here is the final result of all this work. I think it's truly deserving of the Canadian Game Design Award. Thanks for your consideration.
I really love how rich in the Canadian history this game is, and I really appreciate seeing this time of bidding mechanism that, yeah, like you normally bid for a job, you're bidding to be the lowest paid, and you'd almost never see that in a game. So this one is really interesting. I can't wait to give it a try. So the next one that I'm going to be talking about is Farm to Table. Farm to Table was designed by Daniel Wong, and he's from Toronto, Ontario. Let's see what he has to say about his game.
Hi, I'm Daniel Wong. Welcome to Farm to Table, a high-stakes cooking competition brought to your kitchen table. It's a card game for 2 to 4 players that captures the intensity of being a contestant on the Iron Chef. The core of the game is building a hidden resource engine right in your hands. You'll spend your time prepping the perfect menu behind the scenes, but the real drama unfolds during 4 intense tasting rounds. This is where you'll face off in front of a panel of famous food critics. To win, you aren't just trying to outcook your opponents, you're trying to play the mind games to win the long game. Let's take a closer look. Each card offers a choice. You can use it as an ingredient to fuel your engine, or you can use it as a recipe to score points. Ingredients have large icons here, and recipes have these ingredient boxes here. When it comes time to serve a dish, make sure your recipes are supported by the necessary ingredients. Here's a dish featuring liver pate. If you look at the recipe, it requires 2 pigs and butter. Pig, butter. And butter itself requires a cow. Cow right here. Add up the points in hexagons. Altogether, this dish is worth 6 points. Here's another dish. 2 cheeses. It's just a couple of ingredients, but in this game, it's still a dish and it's worth 2 points. Every ingredient that I have previously served to my chef station, pig, cow, butter, can be used for the rest of the game. Also, ingredients can be reused for different recipes. So check each ingredient box individually. Cow, check. Cow, check. And let's try one more. Ham and 2 charcuterie board. 2 pigs, check. 2 cheeses and a ham, check. Now let's throw in a cheddar sausage. And how about a bacon? And that gets us to 20 points. The game is simple to set up and quick to play. On your turn, just choose a card and add it to your hand. Then replace the card, and then it's the next player's turn. But the real fun starts when someone calls the critics. Whenever you have 5 or more cards in your hand, you're allowed to call the critics. This initiates a tasting round. And here's how it works. The caller starts by serving a benchmark dish. Then, every other player takes an additional turn where they will serve a dish at the end of their turn. Finally, the caller, without taking another turn, gets the option to top up their dish. The critics will be giving 1 positive review and 1 negative review. In the first round, the positive review is worth 5 points, and the negative review is worth -2 points. And with each tasting round, the numbers get bigger. The caller needs to beat every other player in points to win the positive review. If they fail, they get the negative review. Other players are also competing for the positive review, but their downside is more limited. As long as they beat the benchmark, they are safe, and only the worst dish is at risk. Add the reviews to your chef station. Then regular play continues. Perhaps the most important thing to keep in mind is that your hand does not reset after the tasting round. You continue playing with your leftover cards, so every card you play now is a card you won't have for later. After 4 tasting rounds, the game is over. Add up all the points in your chef station, including reviews, and all the points on all the dishes you've played this game. Whoever has the most points wins the game. So what makes Farm to Table special? To me, it's the perfect marriage between the satisfying elegance of engine building and the energy of tactical bidding. By hiding your resource engine right in your hand, your tactical choices remain a secret. Even as elements are unveiled, your opponents are left guessing your true scoring potential. Crucially, you have total control over the pacing. There's no artificial timer. A tasting round only triggers when you decide your menu is complete. It shifts the experience from an optimization puzzle to a psychological battle of bluffing and timing your strike. So pull up a chair and let's see who's really the king of the kitchen.
So Farm to the Table has been with me for the past couple of weeks, and I did have a chance to play. It's an adorable, super satisfying card game, and I've quite enjoyed it, even though I've lost. But, you know, it's still here, so I could play it again. Maybe I'll get a win next time. So the next one that is made the finalist, still in alphabetical order, and that is Headway. So Headway is a game that I've had the chance to play because the designer, Chris Cooke, is actually from Edmonton, Alberta. Actually, if you look at my past videos, you can find a playthrough of Headway. Although changes have happened, and I've got to play it again not too long ago in a 4-player game, which wasn't something that was part of it recently. But let's see what Chris has to say about this game.
Hi, my name is Chris Cooke, and I'm resubmitting my game Headway to the CGDA award for 2026. I've made some pretty big improvements to the game that I'm really excited about. We'll talk about the basics first, then I'll cover those at the end. In Headway, players control skeletons that have fallen apart. To put themselves back together, they have to drink their opponent's mojo, which is their soul in a delicious liquid form. To do that, you'll have to overlap your opponent's mojo card with your skull card. The first player to do that wins the game. What's really unique about Headway is that there's no board or grid at all. Your cards can kind of just go anywhere on the table as long as they overlap one of your other cards. So as play progresses, your bones will shift around on the table, forming these weird free-form paths and even splitting up into completely separate chains, all in the effort of going through and around your opponent to get to their mojo first. As well as being able to freely place and maneuver your bones around, you can also utilize each bone's special abilities. A ribcage card is allowed to recall other cards back to it, no matter how far apart they might have been. The arm cards are allowed to throw cards between them, also regardless of distance. The leg cards are able to both move in the same turn, letting you take some extra actions, more so than normal. And your skull card is able to move multiple times in one turn, bridging gaps across card chains, and moving huge distances to catch your opponent off guard, and hopefully win. Let's go into the improvements now. Since last submission, the biggest change I've made is a fundamental rework of how the cards are used and played with. The basics are the same, but now there's no longer a concept of a player hand. Players used to have all their cards in their hand, they would play them to the table so that they could move them around, and if cards were left loose, meaning on their own, they would get picked back up, or players could choose to pick cards back up to strategically place them elsewhere. I found this slowed the game down a lot, sort of narrowed the decision space, and also just didn't look as good. And it was limiting to some of the special ability designs. Now, there's no more hand. Your cards are always all on the table, and you can leave them on their own. There's some restrictions to this, but there's also some strategic benefits to it, and it looks pretty funny to have a bunch of scattered bones all over the place. This also let me rework some of the abilities, most notably the ribcage, which used to give you an extra turn and was kind of boring and overpowered, and now allows you to retrieve loose cards if you've decided that you don't want them stuck out on their own, which is also thematic. Additionally, I've also added team play to the game. Headway used to only be 1-on-1, but now you can play it with 2, 4, or 6 players. The game will either be 1v1, 2v2, or 3v3, always team-based. Right here we have an example of a 2v2 game set up. When you're playing in teams, you always have a partner or two, and they'll always be the player sitting on the same side of the table as you. In team play, you can never move a teammate's card, only your own, but you can intermingle with your teammates and move along their cards and use their abilities to help you move your own cards. For example, this yellow skeleton throughout the course of the game could move his cards such that he connects to the green skeleton. And now the green skeleton could move his cards along this chain and along his teammates' cards freely as if they were his own. This adds a really awesome dynamic where you can go much wider and split up much more than you used to be able to in just 1-on-1. Additionally, you can throw cards from your own arms to your teammates or vice versa, so a bit of catch with your friends. Or you can recall cards to your teammate's ribcage, even if it's a last-minute clutch defense of your own mojo. The second last improvement that I made to the game, which has really added a lot of replayability, is that your skeleton configuration at the start is now randomized. So they're always shaped like a skeleton, but where each bone goes is different, so that each game is always a little different, and you don't fall into the same opening habits you might do otherwise, if you were always in the normal skeleton shape. Lastly, I really love this rule change. To add a sense that games are progressing and getting closer to ending, and to make sure that they actually end, I've added a rule where your mojo can only be moved once per game, no matter how it's moved. Whether it's a shift, a recall to a ribcage, or a throw between arms, you're now going to have to flip your mojo over to its backside to indicate that it's spilled and it's stuck there. You got to make good use of that one move. Well, that's it. I'm really excited to get to show off the new version of Headway. I think it's come a long way, and I can't wait to see what other games are submitted to the awards. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Bye.
And that was Headway. So the final entry that we have, let me bring that one up, is Paradoxides, designed by Scott Preston, Katie McDonough, and Katelyn Rogers from Fredericton, New Brunswick. So let's have a look at what they have to say about that game.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, I'm Autumn.
And I'm Dr. Scott Preston.
And together, we're Resolve.
Resolve is an applied game design research group that I started at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton with my students in 2021. We created and self-published our very first game, Project Aude, the UNB history card game, last year. And today, we're thrilled to tell you about our next game project.
Paradoxides is Ticket to Ride meets Wingspan, a carefully researched light strategy board game rich in scientific and historical detail. The game takes you back in time to the remarkable early years of Canadian geology and paleontology, when some of the most important discoveries in the world happened on our Atlantic coast.
You play as one of these original fossil hunters, competing to become the most renowned scientist of your era. As you travel around the map, gather fossils, and help build collections at local museums, you'll find yourself immersed in authentic archival illustrations, Victorian graphic design, and Canada's renowned scientific heritage.
Paradoxides is a game of set collecting and hand management while racing to be the first player to reach 40 on the reputation track. The main components are the board, featuring a historical map with famous fossil sites, and 105 discovery cards divided into 6 different decks. Each card contains a unique fossil belonging to one of 10 different geological periods and one of 4 different forms of life: vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and single-celled organisms. The decks also contain some wild cards. Players score reputation points by giving public lectures and publishing scientific papers based on their fossil research. In the game, this is represented by collecting sets of fossils depicted on openly displayed cards. Everyone is competing together for these cards. Only the first person to make the set receives the points, and the others must pivot to a different collection. Players gather their fossils by moving their pawn around the map and drawing cards from different decks. There are no dice in the game. Each can move 1, 2, or 3 spaces, providing them with some choice about where to hunt for fossils. When fossils are found, they are placed on the player's collection map. The mat has room for 8 fossils, similar to the hand limit in a card game. As players near their limit, they'll face tough decisions about what to keep and what to discard. Instead of simply discarding, however, they can donate fossils to the museums in the game. This is a key strategic element in Paradoxides. Both museums have particular kinds of fossils they want in their collections. If your fossil meets their needs, you can donate it for 2 reputation points. This donation also gives you a favor from the museum. On a future turn, you can cash in that favor to use any fossil in the museum donated by another player towards completing any set you are working on. The game's best strategic moments emerge from the player's careful decisions about which cards to donate and how best to use the favors they've gained from these donations.
Paradoxides is a unique game that stands apart from the crowd. It brings both history and science to life in an approachable, light strategy experience that tells a local story of national significance. On Canada's east coast, within a few hours' drive, you'll see evidence of 1 billion years of Earth's history. Few places on the planet can compare when it comes to complex geological diversity in such a small area. Our game lets you relive the historical study of this region by Canada's first geologists in the 19th century.
Our design approach is also unique. We look for themes and settings that don't often appear in games. Then we carefully and exhaustively research them, staying true to the subject matter while also concentrating on creating a fun and engaging experience at the table. Finally, we bring the game to life with archival materials, historic photographs, information and descriptions full of detail and character, and period-appropriate graphic design to make a whole package unlike anything you'll find anywhere else.
Paradoxides is a Canadian game that is truly deserving of consideration for the Canadian Game Design Award.
Thank you for considering us.
So that was Paradoxides, which I love paleontology-themed games. Living so close to the largest dinosaur museum kind of makes that easy, but I hadn't realized there was such a rich history of that in the Maritimes. So another history-rich entry, so I'm really excited to give that one a try. I haven't had the chance to yet. So that was also our last entry or last finalist for the 2026 Canadian Game Design Awards. So congratulations to all the finalists. A huge thank you to all the designers that have submitted their games. The choice was tough, and it came to crunching the numbers, but it was really tight. So congratulations to everybody who participated. That was great. Keep in mind, the winner will be announced at FalCon 39 this year on August 22nd, 2026. It's going to be announced during the auction at FalCon 39. So if you can, be sure to join us for that so that you can congratulate the winners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye, everybody.